After my mother was diagnosed with cancer, I planned to sell one of the houses I bought before marriage to pay for my mother's treatment. But my husband stopped me, saying that we had enough cash and he would take care of buying the anti-cancer drugs. Until I discovered that the anti-cancer drugs my mother had been taking for 3 years were fake. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. "It's not my fault your mom got cancer. She should be grateful she lived an extra 3 years." After my mom was taken to the emergency room, he still blocked me from paying the fees. "I only married you because you had a house. If you insist on treating your mom, then let's divorce." My mother-in-law cursed and said, "Your mom is in the late stage of cancer and doesn't have many days left. Treating her is a waste. It would be better to spend the money on more health supplements for me. I don't want to get cancer. Once she's gone, my son will be your only support. Think carefully about whose advice you should follow." This mother and son duo had their intentions written all over their faces. But in the end, it turned out the one with cancer was my mother-in-law. The moment I took the delivery box in my hands, my whole body was trembling. The anti-cancer medication my mom had been taking for 3 years turned out to be fake. And the one responsible for all of this was my husband, Song Ching-hao. To outsiders, Song Ching-hao appears kind and approachable. At home, he's a good husband and a dutiful son. My dad passed away early, and when Song Ching-hao learned that my mom had raised me on her own, he knelt in front of my mom at our wedding and swore to the heavens that he would take better care of her than he would of me. During these years of marriage, Song Ching-hao was quite filial to my mom, and after her cancer diagnosis, his care for her only increased. He told me not to inform my mom about her diagnosis, saying he was afraid she wouldn't be able to handle the emotional burden of knowing she had cancer. He even arranged for his mom and mine to go to the hospital for health checkups together every year, claiming that he was worried my mom would feel uneasy going by herself. I always thought Song Ching-hao was being thoughtful and doing all this for my mom's well-being. But the truth was, he was afraid she'd discover the fake medication during a solo checkup. "Honey, haven't you found the tape yet? You still have such a poor memory." Song Ching-hao walked towards me tenderly. However, when he saw the delivery box I was holding, his expression changed instantly, and his body visibly stiffened. At the moment he walked over, anger filled my mind. Seeing his hypocritical face again, I couldn't help but feel nauseated. Song Ching-hao snatched the delivery box and frowned, complaining, "Even though we're husband and wife, we still need to give each other some private space." Before I could speak, "Eek," he impatiently added, "can you stop being so suspicious? Is this how we should live?" I still held on to a slight hope, thinking he was scammed while buying medicine. But now it seems he's afraid he won't be able to take my mother's life. Song Ching-hao's attitude of turning the tables made me give up the idea of confronting him. I immediately took out my phone to call the police. "Hello, someone here is selling fake medicine." Just as I finished speaking, Song Ching-hao grabbed my phone and hung up. "Are you out of your mind? So, what if it's fake medicine? Didn't your mom survive?" "What do you mean my mom survived?" "He gave my mom fake medicine, and now he thinks he's in the right?" I really don't know where he gets his nerve. I slapped Song Ching-hao hard across the face. The slap left Song Ching-hao completely dumbfounded. He stared at me, his eyes filled with disbelief. Song Ching-hao's mom rushed over when she heard the commotion. Seeing the bright red handprint on Song Ching-hao's face, she raised her voice and shouted, "What's wrong with giving your mom fake medicine? Your mom doesn't have a pension. She's lucky to have anything to take at all. She's always acting all high and mighty around us, so getting sick is just what she deserves. What does whether my mom has a pension or not have to do with her? She talks as if I don't make money myself." Afraid things would spiral out of control, Song Ching-hao quickly shielded his mom and softened his tone. "We're all family. Can't we sit down and talk this through calmly? Please, let's not make a scene." "Family? That's probably the biggest lie I've ever believed in, like a fool." Song Ching-hao's mom clicked her tongue slightly and said irritably, "This dramatic demeanor is just like her mother's. How can you accuse my son of giving her fake medicine? As her daughter, you didn't care about her enough. Otherwise, you would have noticed earlier. If anything actually happens to her, she has herself to blame." "I don't care about my mom. Ever since I started working, I made my mom stop her street stall business. I took care of all her expenses so she could enjoy life more. What right does Song Ching-hao's mom have to say this? She benefited a lot from my mom. Although Song Ching-hao's income was good, before we got married, he didn't even understand how to show respect to elders. His mom claimed she had a pension and didn't need his money, and he took it literally. Every holiday, he would return home empty-handed. During the first Mid-Autumn festival after we got married, we went to spend the new year with his mom. When I asked him what gifts to buy, he asked me back why we should buy any. That's when I realized he wasn't very filial to his mom. Later, at my suggestion, he started giving money to his mom. I'm not a stingy person. When I spent money on my mom, I'd also buy a gift for Song Qinghao's mom. Looking back, it seems like I bought those things for nothing. Besides, it was Song Qinghao who volunteered to be responsible for buying my mom's anti-cancer medication. He was worried that I'd be distraught over my mom and that it would affect my mood and hinder our plans to conceive. I scoffed. I'll swap your health supplements with fake ones tomorrow. Let's see if you can survive on that. If you die, it would truly be a blessing from the heavens. No sooner had I said that than Song Qinghao's mother plopped onto the ground, wailing, "Oh son, this is the good wife you married," cursing me to death in broad daylight. What was she crying about? To someone unaware, she might seem like the victim here. Song Qinghao helped his mom up, frowned, and reproached me. "This is between you and me. Why take it out on my mom? I'm telling you, what you did wasn't right." His mother immediately added, "I'm telling you, even if your mom really died, it has nothing to do with my son. It's your own poisonous mouth that brought this upon your mom." I was so angry at these words that I had to laugh. Whether it has anything to do with it is not for you to decide. You might find out you're involved too. I didn't want to continue talking to these ungrateful mother and son, so I prepared to grab my bag and leave. I had already made my plans. Once out the door, I'd call the police again, and then take my mom to the hospital. Seeing I was about to leave, Song Qinghao panicked instantly. He rushed over to try to pin me down. My heart started racing wildly. The next second, there was a loud knocking on the door. It was the police. I breathed a sigh of relief. Song Qinghao's mother still wanted to argue that this was a private family matter. I shouted that someone was selling fake medicine. We were taken to the police station. Selling fake medicine is no small matter. Song Qinghao insisted it was all a misunderstanding and explained everything that had happened. He didn't buy fake medicine online. He bought medicine bottles to make the act seem real and deceive me. What medicine did he give my mom? My question was interrupted by the sudden ringing of the phone. It was from the hospital. Something happened to my mom. In an instant, my heart sank. Without caring about anything else, I rushed out of the police station and ran to the roadside to hail a cab. Song Qinghao followed behind me with his mother. From the sound, they were a distance away from me. They thought I couldn't hear their conversation. Song Qinghao openly said, "I was planning to keep pretending until she had the baby. You ruined it all." When I arrived at the hospital, my mom was still in the emergency room. I could barely stand and weakly sat on a chair outside the operating room, forcing myself to calm down. I didn't know how much time had passed when Song Qinghao came over with his mother. As soon as he spoke, he said, "Are the expenses high? If it's late-stage cancer, don't treat it. Living would just make her suffer more." I half squinted my eyes and sneered coldly. "Isn't the hospital not supposed to allow beasts in?" Song Qinghao opened his mouth wide, stammered for a long time, and couldn't utter a word. His mother couldn't stand it anymore, pulled him behind her, pointed at my nose, and shouted, "Who are you calling an animal? You little brat, I've really been too lenient with you. I'm warning you, don't take your anger out on my son. You're the real animal." Loud noises are prohibited in the hospital. I also couldn't be bothered to argue with this ungrateful pair of mother and son. So, I silently retreated back to my seat. Song Qinghao's mother snorted heavily when she saw this. "What? Regretting it now? I'm telling you, it's too late to regret it. My son won't give your mother a single cent. I'm not being harsh, but your mother getting cancer is just karma. Whenever we want a little help from you, she rushes over to object. Who does she think she is? Getting cancer serves her right." My tolerance didn't bring me peace. Instead, it made this mother and son duo even more presumptuous. I could no longer stand it and suddenly stood in front of Song Qinghao's mother. Song Qinghao's mother was startled by me and fell to the ground with a thud. I hadn't even said anything yet when she started shouting at the top of her lungs. "How dare you treat me like this? Don't you believe I can expose your unfilial behavior and let everyone hear it?" She must have been frightened out of her wits, saying such nonsensical things. My unfilial behavior? Song Qinghao's mother's voice was so loud that it attracted the attention of many passers-by. A few people looking for drama had already gathered around. Song Qinghao suddenly approached me. "Even if you're unfilial, you can't give your own mother fake medicine. I really misjudged you, you heartless woman." What nonsense is Song Qinghao spouting? How could I possibly give my mother fake medicine? This must have been a prearranged setup by him and his mother to frame me and shift the blame onto me. Seeing that I was about to speak, Song Qinghao's mother yelled again, Everyone, come and see. This ungrateful woman not only beats her husband and scolds her mother-in-law, but now she's even giving her own mother fake anti-cancer drugs. Isn't it said that daughters are their mother's little jackets? How can she be so vicious? It would have been better to give birth to a piece of barbecued pork than to her. Call the police. Arrest this ungrateful woman who dares to give her own mother fake drugs. Passers-by, unaware of the truth, labeled me as an ungrateful daughter based solely on a few words from Song Qinghao and his mother. I was condemned by everyone. Song Qinghao and his mother could hardly contain their smug expressions. In such a situation, I had to remain calm. I sneered and said, "The police station has already filed a case. No matter what you say, it's useless." Upon hearing this, Song Qinghao instantly panicked. His mother was stunned for a moment, then sat on the ground and started slapping her thighs. "Oh heavens, can you open your eyes and take away this ungrateful daughter? She not only gives fake medicine to her mother, but also brings disaster to our Song family. What wrong have we done?" Song Qinghao's mother was crying with a runny nose, looking so miserable that it tugged at the hearts of those present. She snuck a glance and found her act effective. She suddenly lay on the ground, pretending to be suffocating from crying. Song Qinghao kneeled down, shouting, "Mom, what's wrong? Don't worry, even if I leave with nothing, I will get a divorce. I won't let you be bullied anymore." At this moment, in the eyes of the onlookers around me, I had become the wicked woman who harmed her own mother and drove her mother-in-law to despair. I wanted to explain, but they didn't give me a chance. Everyone spat words at me, trying to drown me with them. How can there be such a shameless woman? I call the police to arrest her. Indeed, women have hearts like vipers. The crowd's curses weren't enough to vent their anger. They surrounded me in the center and started throwing things at me. I want to escape from the crowd, but they don't give me the chance, and as soon as I get close, they push me back. In no more than a few seconds, bruises appear all over my body. Serves you right, it's karma. You're such a fool. You deserve to be hit. Who just threw the apple? Well done. Beat her to death. Song Qinghao squeezed in from outside, pretending to be kind, and advised, "Everyone, stop hitting her. No matter what, she's still my wife." He looked at me again with eyes filled with disappointment, sighed heavily, and said, "Sai, I'll divorce you and give you 2/3 of the assets. Okay? Just don't drive my mother to despair." No sooner had he finished speaking than the crowd erupted into an intense outcry. Such a good man. Why isn't he my son-in-law? How can this vile woman get 2/3 of the assets? Does she even deserve it? Exactly, if they're really getting a divorce, it should be her leaving with nothing. Don't let them take advantage of honest folks like us. No matter how I explain, these people just won't listen. Song Qinghao cleared his throat and waved his hand. "The eyes of the masses are bright as snow, hear me? You can only divorce me if you leave with nothing. Just sign this agreement." Song Qinghao shoved a divorce agreement into my hand. I asked why he and his mother were putting on a show. Turns out they wanted to use the unsuspecting public to morally coerce me, taking the opportunity to force me into sue. Mission. Without another word, I tore up the agreement and took out my phone to call the police. Song Qinghao tried to snatch my phone away. The door to the emergency room suddenly opened, and a doctor came out, loudly reprimanding. "This is a hospital, not the street. Don't make a commotion. Family members of the patient, don't be too anxious. I heard you talking about cancer in there." "What cancer? Your mother doesn't have cancer. She just needs to cut down on vitamins and not stay up so late." "My mom doesn't have cancer? Then who has cancer?" The doctor's words indirectly proved my innocence. The onlookers fell silent, and some who were more astute quietly left. More people, with a desire to stir up trouble, began to discuss the situation. However, this time their target was Song Qinghao. "The woman's mother doesn't have cancer. What's this man talking about? I think he's trying to drive her out empty-handed using us. This guy is really despicable. Thankfully, he's not my son-in-law." Song Qinghao's face turned pale. It's not pleasant to experience the feeling of everyone pointing fingers at you. He paused for a few seconds, then rushed to the doctor and questioned, "Doctor, did you make a mistake? Her mother has had cancer for a year already. How could she not have cancer? Her mother and my mom have checkups 4 times a year. It's impossible for her not to have cancer." I chuckled coldly. Is Song Qinghao still lost in his imagined outcome? If my mom doesn't have cancer and the medical report isn't wrong, then it must be his mom who has it. Back then, Song Qinghao suggested that my mom and his mom get checked together. He was trying to reduce the chances of being exposed, but unexpectedly, he ended up causing trouble for his mom. The doctor sighed. "Young man, I think you're the one who's mistaken." Song Qinghao's mother got up from the ground, her eyes wide like bronze bells. She stood for less than a minute before suddenly collapsing with weakness in her limbs, sitting heavily on the ground. Son, could it be me who has cancer? Didn't you say her mom had cancer? Told me to take vitamins and go through the motions. My head hurts, and my heart is pounding. Song Qinghao hurriedly helped his mom up from the ground. Mom, don't scare yourself. The one with cancer is definitely her mom. My mom walked out of the emergency room, approached Song Qinghao, and said with a mocking tone, Xiao Song, tell Annie the truth. Are you just not willing to treat your mom? That's why you lied that she doesn't have cancer. Song Qinghao looked at my mom angrily. You old hag, how can you talk like that? With such a foul mouth, how did you not die in the emergency room? I was just about to defend my mom. But my mom protected me behind her, signaling with her eyes to leave everything to her. She sneered, Don't go barking at me. Don't think I don't. Know your little scheme. You just think it's too expensive and don't want to treat your mom. Isn't that right, everyone? The crowd erupted into the most intense discussions. Aren't children supposed to support their parents? He actually doesn't want to treat his mom. Beast, a complete beast. Being spoken about like this, Song Qinghao was so anxious he was hopping mad. His face turned red as he shouted at the top of his lungs. You don't know a damn thing. My mom is perfectly healthy. There's no way she has cancer. Song Qinghao was busy arguing with the crowd and didn't notice what was happening behind him. His mom was about to faint. It was only after Song Qinghao's mom fainted that he realized the seriousness of the situation. In a panic, he rushed her to the emergency room. I contacted 2 lawyers. One to handle the case of Song Qinghao giving my mom fake medicine, and the other for my divorce case with Song Qinghao. For now, I've handed everything over to the lawyers to deal with. The most urgent task is to accompany my mom for a health checkup. Although my mom performed a square dance routine to prove she was fine, I still couldn't be at ease. I accompanied my mom for the checkup, and eventually, on the doctor's advice, decided to stay in the hospital for 1 day. When I was pouring water for my mom, my phone rang. My mom answered it and put it on speaker. On the other end, Song Qinghao shouted with barely concealed exhaustion. Where the hell have you been? My mom has been diagnosed with cancer, and you don't even come to take care of her? My mom didn't give me a chance to speak, yelling even louder than Song Qinghao. What does your mom being sick have to do with my daughter? What? Is her son dead? After scolding him, my mom hung up the phone, leaving no room for Song Qinghao to argue. She looked at me, her eyes suddenly moist. Mom regrets it so much. In the years you've been married into the Song family, Song Qinghao's mother has always been subtly ordering you around. As long as I'm present, I'd step in to help you. I thought Song Qinghao was good and didn't want you to face trouble from your mother-in-law. I didn't expect this mother and son duo had already conspired together. Mom let you down. Tell me, if I weren't so strong-willed, would this have happened? My eyes suddenly became misty. My dad passed away early, and my mom quit her respectable but low-paying job to support me by doing business. She has always been gentle-tempered. In my memory, I've never seen her argue with anyone. But now, for my sake, she has become unreasonable. I smiled and comforted her. Mom, it's not your fault. You shouldn't blame yourself. Song Qinghao is just like that. Even without you, he would have schemed against me. His heart is rotten. My mom held me in her arms and told me to leave the rest to her. Looking at my mom, I couldn't help but feel emotional. Having a loving mom is truly wonderful. Today, the world is unpredictable, with great ups and downs. The phone rang again. It was Song Qinghao calling. I directly blocked him, not giving him a chance to act crazy. I don't know how he's feeling, but I'm sure he's not doing well. Song Qinghao, you thought you could scheme against my mom. Your retribution has arrived. Song Qinghao suddenly barged in. His eyes were bloodshot, glaring viciously at my mom and me. Your daughter married me, so she should serve my mother. Why are you so happy when my mom is in late-stage cancer? My mom rolled her eyes at him. Your mother has cancer because she raised a beast of a son. Back then, you schemed to kill me and wipe out my daughter's lineage. Now you're getting your comeuppance and having a tough time? That's surely what you deserve. Heaven sees everything. Song Qinghao couldn't bear these words, lunged forward to try and cover my mom's mouth, but she kicked him to the ground. He lay on the ground, wailing in pain. My mom is in the late stages of cancer, and it's all your fault. If you weren't so domineering, how would I have even thought of giving you counterfeit medicine? Let me tell you, taking a life means paying with your own. My mom kicked him again and sneered coldly. Where do you get the nerve to blame me? You and your mom brought this on yourselves. It's your fate. Don't think that by saying stuff like this, you can make yourself seem like some kind of filial son. Instead of wasting time here, why don't you spend more time with your mom before you end up missing her final moments? Hearing these words, Song Qinghao instantly flew into a rage. How dare you curse my mom to die? While contacting the nurse, my mom retorted, so, what if I curse your mom to die? You wanted to take my life, and now you're playing the innocent card? You're just a despicable, shameless thing. Realizing he couldn't out-argue my mom, Song Qinghao turned his gaze to me. He suddenly knelt in front of me, tears streaming down his face, and pleaded pitifully. We were husband and wife, weren't we? How can you be so heartless and ignore my mom? My mom is indeed at fault, but she is my mom after all. I won't say much more, you should think about it carefully. What's he feeling wronged about? There's nothing to feel wronged about. He and his mom teamed up to harm my mom, yet they want me to take care of his mom. In his dreams. Is Song Qinghao really filial? He better not fool himself with his own act. If it were my mom who was diagnosed with terminal cancer today, Song Qinghao would drag me to get a divorce overnight. His change in attitude towards me is just because he's afraid of a divorce, knowing he couldn't use my money to save his mom. I looked at him calmly and said, stop making a scene here. I've already hired a lawyer and am preparing to file for divorce. Song Qinghao's expression changed rapidly and he angrily said, fine. Don't say I'm not giving you a way out. I'm going to sue you too. Although I bought the medicine, you were the one who gave it to my mom. It's you who made my mom take fake medicine, causing her to have terminal cancer. I was so angry at his words that I laughed. Song Qinghao really has no shame at all. Even if he sues me, it won't work because he was the one who bought the medicine. My mother seemed to see through Song Qinghao's true thoughts at a glance and confidently said, your mother is harmed by you, and it has nothing to do with my daughter. In that instant, Song Qinghao aged more than 10 years, his face ashen, his whole body trembling. My mother sized him up from head to toe and sneered coldly, I've been doing business for over 10 years, and I knew your little scheme the very next second you spoke. You're quite the filial son, causing your own mother's late-stage cancer. These words shattered Song Qinghao's last psychological defense. Song Qinghao knelt on the ground, covering his face with his hands. You old bastard, I didn't cause my mother's late-stage cancer. It was your daughter who harmed her. Just you wait. Leaving these words behind, Song Qinghao fled in a panic. As he was leaving, the look in his eyes towards me was full of resentment. What does he have to resent? He was the one who mixed up the medical records, and he was the one who bought fake medicine. Isn't he just trying to find some psychological comfort by shifting the responsibility onto me? Song Qinghao knows better than anyone that, even if he sues me, it won't succeed. He's being so stubborn, isn't it just for some psychological comfort? Unfortunately, my mom saw through his little schemes. Every word my mom said was like stabbing directly into his heart. And every single one drew blood. Before leaving the hospital, I received a text message from Song Qinghao. He told me to choose one of two options. Either serve his mom until she dies, or wait to be targeted by him. I couldn't be bothered to respond to him, acting as if I hadn't seen it. But after my mom found out, she couldn't swallow this anger. Without another word, she took me back to the hospital. When we were still a short distance from Song Qinghao's mom's ward, I could hear their voices in conversation. Listening closely, Song Qinghao's days aren't going well. In less than a minute, his mom instructed him to do 5 things. They weren't big things, but some were unnecessary to do. For example, Song Qinghao's mother felt that the hospital room needed to be disinfected every 5 minutes. She was too embarrassed to ask the nurse, so she had Song Qinghao do it. Such an unreasonable request was naturally not agreed upon by the hospital. Song Qinghao refused to do it. His mother immediately lost her temper, believing he was wishing for her death. She directly resorted to dramatic crying, making a scene, and even threatening to hang herself. My mom and I wanted to continue listening to the commotion inside the hospital room, but who would have thought that the next second, Song Qinghao's voice of rebuttal disappeared. Soon after, Song Qinghao emerged looking thoroughly exhausted. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, as if I were his savior. Song Qinghao quickly returned to the room and yelled, "Mom, look who's here? She's here to take care of you." Song Qinghao's mother, who had been crying and creating a scene, calmed down immediately upon hearing this. As soon as I entered, she threw a pillow at me. "You little wretch, you still dare to come and serve me? Let me tell you, it's your fault that I'm in the late stage of cancer. If you don't serve me well, I won't let you go even as a ghost." I hadn't had a chance to respond before Song Qinghao immediately chimed in with his mother, talking to me brazenly. "Since you're here, you better behave. If you don't take good care of my mom, just wait for me to deal with you." Song Qinghao's mother smiled contentedly. But the next second, her smile froze. Because she saw my mom. With a trembling finger pointing at my mom, Song Qinghao's mother stuttered. Why is this old hag here? I don't want to see her, drive her out. Song Qinghao made a please gesture towards my mom. My mom remained unmoved, so he signaled to me with his eyes and lightly coughed twice. The implication was that if I didn't get my mom out, there would be consequences for me. Perhaps he's been sunning himself too much, thinking it's all about appearances. I never agreed from the start to take care of his mom, so how did he end up assigning me? My mom pushed Song Qinghao's hand away and sat down on his mom's bed. This old lady here came to take care of you, happy or not. Your son paid a hefty price to have me look after you. I'll make sure you are well taken care of, aiming to have you cremated by next month. Upon hearing these words, Song Qinghao's mother stood up abruptly and grabbed a water cup, throwing it at Song Qinghao's head. Song Qinghao, are you sincerely wishing for my death? You gave me late-stage cancer, and now you want this old witch to take care of me? Her behavior was somewhat hysterical, but understandable. Overnight, she went from being a normal person to having late-stage cancer. Who could handle that well? Song Qinghao was so anxious that he couldn't speak. My mom added, You raised a wonderful son. I will not let my daughter divorce him. From now on, he will be my son too. Thank you. Song Qinghao knelt on the ground, tears streaming down his face as he cried out in despair. You drove my mom to late-stage cancer, and now you have your mom agitate her too. Are you trying to drive me to death? I will not show you any mercy anymore. I will file a lawsuit against you tomorrow. He was the one who insisted on me coming. If I don't come, he's unhappy. If I do come, he's still unhappy. How does he end up with both the good and the bad? My mom cleared her throat. Your mom has terminal cancer, and you ended up with cerebral palsy? Your family really faces one misfortune after another, and all I can say is it's deserved. Let me emphasize once more, it was your scheming against my family that led to your mother's terminal cancer. It has nothing to do with my daughter. Don't be deceived by Song Qinghao's mother saying in front of us that it was my fault she reached the late stage of cancer. But she knew very well in her heart that the reason for her advanced cancer was her beloved son. Otherwise, the incident where she tortured Song Qinghao would not have happened. The mother and son understood each other without words, using this as a pretext to morally blackmail me. But my mom bluntly tore apart the last fig leaf between them. Song Qinghao's mom jumped off the bed and pounced on Song Qinghao, biting him hard. Song Qinghao let out a tremendous scream of agony. It was quite a lively scene, but my mom and I had no intention of watching. After all, it was a matter concerning the Song family. After a week, I received another text message from Song Qinghao. He demanded that I kneel and apologize to his mom, or he would cause trouble at my company. He said it was disgraceful to give his mother fake medicine. I immediately replied that giving one's own mother fake medicine was the most disgraceful. The message showed as read, but Song Qinghao didn't respond. After another 15 minutes, he finally replied to me. Stop yapping. If you don't apologize to my mom, I'll make sure you lose your job. I glanced at it and ignored him. Song Qinghao had become completely deranged. Even if a dog bit him by the roadside, he'd claim I ordered the dog to do it. Fortunately, the pregnancy planning between him and me didn't succeed. Otherwise, I'd be worried the child might inherit inferior genes. I let out a sigh. Song Qinghao causing trouble at my workplace wouldn't cost me my job, but it's undoubtedly annoying. A knock on the door pulled me out of my chaotic thoughts. From outside, my mom anxiously asked, Daughter, is the Song family messing with you again? Let me deal with them for you. In truth, I don't want my mom to worry too much about me. My mom isn't young anymore. At an age when she should be enjoying life, she's been worrying about me time and time again. I talked to her about this, but she ended up crying because of her concern for me. Not wanting to upset her further, I tried hiding things from her. But no one knows their daughter better than her own mother. Even when I behaved naturally, she could still sense it. Knowing I was keeping things from her, she would then secretly cry behind my back. She doesn't want me to worry about her, and I don't want her to worry about me. We're mother and daughter, yet because we care so much about each other, we unintentionally hurt each other's hearts. Later, I thought it over. My mom loves me so much. Why would I let her love go to waste? After learning that Song Qinghao was planning to cause trouble at my company, my mom patted her chest and assured me. She said she would handle it. The next day, I went to work. Just a few meters away from the company, Song Qinghao jumped out from the corner. He suddenly knelt in front of me, holding up a sign in his hands. Evil daughter-in-law gives fake medicine to mother-in-law. It was Monday, and the road to work felt lifeless. But with his commotion, the atmosphere around suddenly livened up. Some people who were in no rush to punch in stopped to watch the drama. It had only been a few days, but Song Qinghao looked visibly disheveled. The high-spirited look he once had was nowhere to be seen. Song Qinghao shook the sign and cried out in despair. Give me back my mom, woo woo woo. Give me back my mom. Some people around quietly raised their phones to record the scene. Conflicts between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law have always been a trending topic, and with Song Qinghao's dramatic crying, it only added to the spectacle. If this were to be posted online, some netizens who don't know the truth would definitely cyberbully me. I loudly defended myself. Song Qinghao seemed to have anticipated this, raising his voice a few notches to completely drown out mine. As I raised my voice, he raised his even higher. He did it on purpose, intending to have me cyberbullied. I was feeling a bit agitated and somewhat at a loss. Just then, my mom squeezed her way in. Without a word, she snatched away Song Qinghao's sign and cried even more fiercely than Song Qinghao. Son-in-law, can I keep taking the fake medicine you gave me? Don't hurt my daughter. She's my only daughter. Having navigated society for so many years, my mom may be feisty, but she knows when to be soft. Voices of discussion rose from the crowd. They were arguing over who had given whose mother counterfeit medicine. Suddenly, an inappropriate voice interrupted. Someone seemed to recognize Song Haoqing. I wasn't sure if Song Haoqing heard the comment or just felt he couldn't outcry my mom. He simply pressed his face to the ground, playing dead. After a while, he noticed a small gap in the crowd and slipped through. Only when embarrassed do you realize the urgency. Isn't it a bit too late? I guess he initially had a plan to kill two birds with one stone. This road is the one that Song Qinghao's boss must take. Song Qinghao wanted me to suffer from cyberbullying and use that to gain sympathy from his BOSS. I heard that his boss is a very filial person. Song Qinghao truly has a career-oriented mindset. Although this matter was posted online, it didn't gain much attention. So, I didn't pay much attention to it. However, I heard from others that he lost his job due to causing trouble. His boss was embarrassed by him. Soon, it was time for my court session with Song Qinghao. Song Qinghao requested 2/3 of my property, otherwise he wouldn't agree to the divorce. The court couldn't mediate our conflict, so we were given a 2-month marriage cooling-off period. I sighed, feeling quite frustrated. However, there is still some good news. Song Qinghao was sentenced to 3 months for giving my mom fake medicine over a long period. He couldn't accept the outcome and demanded an appeal. Overwhelmed with excitement, he couldn't catch his breath and passed out. I didn't want to accompany him to the hospital, but since I'm his legal wife, I had no choice but to go. Not long after we arrived at the hospital, Song Qinghao woke up. The first person he saw was me, and he got so excited he could hardly contain himself. He even tried to sit up and confront me, only to find a tube inserted into his body. A normal person would feel distress finding a tube in their body, as it means they have a serious illness. But Song Qinghao was absolutely thrilled. With a smug expression, he said, "I'm sick, so you can't divorce me anymore. You're stuck taking care of my mom for the rest of your life." I couldn't help but laugh at his words. It seems he hasn't realized the gravity of the situation yet. I tossed his medical record in front of him. Late-stage lung cancer. Impossible. Did you and the hospital conspire to scare me? There's no way I have cancer. Song Qinghao shouted at me. After his outburst, the room fell into silence. I smiled without saying a word. Whether he believes it or not is up to him. After all, I'm not the one who's sick. He was stubborn, but his body trembled violently. Song Qinghao swung his arm forcefully, attempting to fling the medical record at me. But despite his effort, the record only floated 10 centimeters away. At this moment, Song Qinghao completely broke down. He covered his face and wept, lamenting the injustice of fate. I just watched him, feeling nothing in particular. Song Qinghao reaching this point was truly broad upon himself. In the years we were married, I took the entire family for health checkups every year. The final reports were always kept by Song Qinghao. I only learned today that of all those years, he only did it once. The first year, he mistakenly thought my mom had cancer and started plotting against her. In later checkups, he lied to me about getting examined. In reality, he was afraid his scheming against my mom would be exposed, so he had to follow my mom and his mom the whole time, thus forced to skip the checkups. Song Qinghao cried harder and harder, irritating me. I didn't want to listen anymore, so I took my bag to leave. Song Qinghao shouted angrily, "Why are you leaving? What right do you have to leave? You must take responsibility for me because it was your mom and you who caused my cancer." Ridiculous. It was clearly written on his medical report. The cancer worsened because of heavy smoking in a short period. I heard he got so stressed about his mom's issue that he smoked at least 2 packs a day. What does that have to do with me and my mom? Wasn't he the one smoking? I don't bother arguing with someone who's on their deathbed. It was only half a day after leaving the hospital. The hospital contacted me to handle Song Qinghao's funeral arrangements. Song Qinghao is dead. He entirely brought it upon himself. After I left, he pulled out the tubes on his own, bought a large amount of cigarettes and alcohol, and indulged himself. By the time they found him, his body was already stiff. There was a will at his feet. It stated that all his assets would go to his mother. He was filial for once. But this will held no legal standing. And so, I inherited 3/4 of his assets. From the moment he met me, he had been plotting against me. Scheming here, scheming there. In the end, it was all for nothing, like drawing water with a bamboo basket, and he reaped what he sowed. Without any hesitation, I had Song Qinghao cremated overnight. I also entrusted a lawyer to deliver the share of inheritance that belonged to his mother. From then on, the Song family has nothing to do with me. Song Qinghao really knew how to hide. I had no idea he had so much money. He left me a large inheritance. I planned to use this money to take my mother on a trip around the world. My mother wanted to go out and see the world when she was young. But because of me, she couldn't go anywhere. Now that I have the means, of course, I want to take her out to see the world. The day before we set off, my mother tried on several outfits. Finally, her eyes rested on an off-white dress. After hesitating for a long time, she stammered, "This dress is quite trendy. I won't embarrass you if I wear it out, right?" So that's what she was worried about. I laughed and reassured my mother not to overthink. How could I ever be